Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Susan from Flower Child Gardens. Today we're going to make some compost tea. It's something that you can use as a fertilizer or as a tonic to build up your plant's immune system. And this is a liquid form that you can water in using a watering pail or use one of the sprayer bottles to do a foliar spray. So what we're going to do is actually build one together. I have all the supplies set up here, and these are supplies that you can easily get from Amazon or another online retailer. They are very affordable supplies, and let's go through it one by one. So first off, we have a typical bucket. Nothing fancy. I've been using this for compost tea, so it's a little dirty, but ideally you would wipe this down before each use. And then we have some fish emulsion with kelp. This is a liquid concentrate. It's not necessary, but it's always nice to have because kelp boosts the immune system. Fish emulsion has nitrogen for green growth. And then we've got blackstrap molasses. This is to help feed organisms so that they continue to live and multiply. If sugar is okay, but most folks use molasses. We have some compost, just garden compost, nothing fancy. We also have some accessories from the pet store. We have some tubing that we're going to cut into pieces, and we're going to attach some of these air stones to the tubing. You need a couple of larger ones. Ideally, they would be the largest size, but today I only have mismatching ones. So whatever, it works. I mean, they're large enough. And then you need a couple of smaller air stones. We also have a couple of T connectors, and these are ones that are actually used for irrigation for 1/4-inch tubing, but you can also get these connectors from the aquarium store or Petco. I have a couple of zip ties. This is to close off the compost tea bag, and this bag is basically like a cheesecloth. I have a pair of bypass pruners, but scissors are perfectly fine. It really doesn't matter. And that's the basic supplies needed to build a compost tea system. And we're making actively aerated compost tea. We're working with living organisms. Organisms make the garden healthy, do the job of feeding plants and fighting off the diseases. If it's not actively aerated, then it's anaerobic. That could be harmful to your plants. That's why we're using an air pump to create air bubbles for some oxygen. We have the organisms here in the compost. We're feeding them with molasses. Then we're boosting up the whole compost tea feed with fish emulsion and kelp. Now let's get started. Right now we're only going to deal with the tubing, the air stones, and the connector pieces. Right now we don't need this, and we don't need this. First we're just going to deal with this tubing. I got this from Petco for fresh or saltwater aquariums. Airline tubing. Let's open this up. I just happen to have extra supplies of this from, I guess, a few years ago. This is a lot of tubing. You don't really need this much. Let's measure out a few pieces. We want 2 long pieces and 4 shorter pieces. For long pieces, I kind of want it to be about arm's length or a little shorter. And we're going to make 2 of these. I'm being generous here just to make sure that it's not too short. Here are the 2 long pieces about arm's length, and we're going to set this aside for now. And for the shorter pieces, let's cut about 4 pieces that are about 6 to 10 inches long. Quick way to measure about 6 inches is by using your finger from the thumb to the pinky. Something like that. We have 4 short pieces. Now we want to connect the air stones to the tubing, and let's start with the large pieces. One of these ends is going to go into the pump, and the other end is going to attach to the air stones. We want to attach 2 of these air stones. Take your long tubing piece, and then take your connector piece. This is a T connector, so you attach that end to the long tubing, and then you have the 2 side ends that are going to attach to 2 short tubing pieces. This is what it looks like when we have 2 short ends and 1 long tubing. Again, this end is going to go into the pump, and these shorter ends are going to attach to the air stones. Here are the air stones. This is what it looks like. It looks like it's charcoal or something, and bubbles come out of this. We're going to attach one and then the other one on the second short tubing. These break easily. They're really fragile, so try not to drop the air stone. That's what it looks like attached. Let's do the second one. This time we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to attach the smaller air stones. Let's take that connector piece and attach it to one of the ends, secure it and get it in there good. Take the small piece and attach it to the other end. Take the second small piece and attach it to the other end. Again, this is what it looks like. Next, we're going to attach the smaller air stones to the tubing. This is how it looks attached. Now we have to attach it to the pump, and here's the standard aquarium pump. You know, when you're brewing small batches at home, you're not dealing with too much material. Small pump like this will suffice. If you're brewing larger batches, more than this bucket, then you want to get a more professional, stronger pump. We're going to attach both sets of tubing into the pump. There we go. Both of them are on. One is attached to the smaller air stones, and the other is attached to the larger air stones. The larger ones are going to go directly in the bucket, free and loose. The smaller ones are going to go in our compost tea bag. For this size tea bag, I'm going to add about a jar full of compost in here. Let's put the small air stones in the compost tea bag. You can tie it up, but I really don't want any of the debris coming out. So this is when I cinch the bag, and I take my zip tie, and I make sure that I seal it completely. Let's cut that off. The small air stones are in the compost tea bag, and it's been cinched tightly. The tubing is inside this bag, but the large air stones are going into the bucket loose. We want to feed the living organisms that are in the compost with molasses, and we want to boost it up with some liquid fertilizer. About that much is good for the molasses. The same amount is good for the fish and kelp fertilizer. Let's go to the greenhouse and finish this whole setup. Okay, I've got my pump here and my bucket over down here. All the air stones, tubing, and the tea bag are in the bucket with the fish emulsion and the molasses. Now we need to hook up the pump. We also need to add some water. And this is what it looks like. The small air stones are in the tea bag, and the larger ones are free and loose. And then turn up the pump so that there's lots of air bubbles going on. You do want to cover it with some sort of permeable material or a bucket cover with a couple of ventilation holes. You know, this is living organisms, so you want them to breathe, you want them to have oxygen, but by covering it, you're going to prevent critters or insects hovering over it. In about a day, this is going to really foam up. It's going to bubble. It's going to be very frothy. You brew this for about 24 to 36 hours and you can start using it, but you do need to use it immediately within 2 to 4 hours because these are living organisms. You don't want them to die. Dilute the compost tea using a watering can, or you can use a sprayer bottle. This is a 2-gallon one, and if you do use a sprayer bottle, you want to make sure you strain the liquid so that there's very little debris because it can clog up the sprayer head. You use this as a foliar spray, and you spray it on the top of the leaves and the underside as well. Whenever you're spraying, morning is better because whenever you water leaves and foliage, they're susceptible to getting diseases. So if you water in the morning, they have the afternoon to dry off. Whereas if you water in late afternoon, they're going to be damp throughout the night. It's no good. I also suggest writing compost tea with a Sharpie, really big letters, so that your neighbors understand that you are applying something that's organic and safe and not an herbicide or a pesticide. I would apply this compost tea depending on the situation. A lot of times it's to feed the plant and to boost up the plant's immunity and to make them more robust and healthy. Then sometimes it's used as a prevention measure against diseases, particularly powdery mildew. A lot of times you can apply this on a weekly basis for about a month or 2 months before the transition period. Powdery mildew is prevalent. The usual transition period in the Bay Area is between spring and summer and fall. all of a sudden temps really drastically change. You know, the Bay Area, it could be 50 degrees in the morning and then 90 degrees in the afternoon and back to 50 degrees in the evening. That usually causes powdery mildew issues. If we had stable weather, consistent temps, consistent moisture level, then we probably wouldn't have as much powdery mildew on our plants. But this is not a guaranteed tonic. You know, it's just to help really give kind of like a booster shot to your plants. When they are healthy, they're able to defend themselves a little better. Okay guys, I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll list all the supplies down below. Have a good Sunday. It's Easter Sunday, and happy belated Passover. Bye guys.